Making a building takes months, but demolishing one takes just a blink of an eye. The process, though, is not as easy as it may sound, and on many occasions, things don't go as planned. Today, we'll be talking about some of the demolitions that went wrong. So sit back, grab your popcorn, and let's begin. A residential building in Sevastopol, Crimea was brought down, but the process didn't go quite the way it was planned. The building was demolished to provide land for industrial facilities. All the buildings that Russian authorities believed were illegal were brought down. Loads and loads of explosives were planted on this building, but it managed to stay on its feet even after the explosion. Yes, there was smoke all around, yet the building was built strong enough to somehow avoid the powerful impact of the planted explosives. Authorities claim that workers purposefully planned fewer explosives to avoid damaging buildings in the vicinity. Anglicea Power Station was a 150-megawatt brown coal-fired clunker that closed along with the coal mine that fed it in 2015. A failed attempt to demolish the power station occurred in late May 2018. After its closure in 2014, the evacuation process began. After evacuation came the time to blow up the building. While doing so, the demolition company only managed a bit of some smoke and a few injuries to the building. Later on, it was reported that the building had asbestos inside, which provided additional structural strength. Luckily, the entitled company was not sued, and they escaped with the claim that they should have hired an expert. On a Friday afternoon in Vordingborg, Denmark, a big crowd gathered to see the removal of a historic concrete silo. The 170-foot tower, which was supposed to fall on a cleared field, instead fell on a cultural center, including a music school and an archive. When a prominent concrete structure was dismantled, it tragically fell in the wrong direction, crushing a neighboring building. Onlookers yelled in terror as a 53-meter silo collapsed and landed on a tiny library in Vordingborg. On one side, the library was reduced to rubble. Even though books were knocked off shelves, staff offices and other administrative areas sustained the most damage. According to local media, hundreds of people turned out to see the planned explosion on Friday night. This is what they saw. An accident leveled a neighborhood library and cultural center. Despite the damage to the building's front, the municipal of Vordingborg reports that the structure's interior was virtually unscathed. According to the report, volunteers helped clear massive amounts of dust and debris from the building, including shards of glass. The Petersburg Sports and Concert Complex first opened its doors in May 1980. The World Hockey Championship 2023 might be held in St. Petersburg, according to a 2017 announcement. As a consequence, the facility needed to be updated. Following the refurbishment, a capacity of 21,500 for hockey games and 23,000 for concerts is projected. The roof collapsed as the Petersburg Sports and Concert Complex on Yuri Gagarin Avenue was demolished. This was reported by Fontanka, a website that broadcasts the demolition of buildings. A worker used a gas tool to cut a section of the metal frame. When the ceiling began to collapse, the worker dashed to the cradle where his friend was waiting. Because of the low quality of the video footage, this cannot be verified. During construction, 2 cradles were dropped from cranes onto the top of the sports facility. The ceiling crumbled after removing 10 stretch marks. Ambulances and firefighters were sent to the sports complex. Matvey Kucherov, 29, a worker at the demolition site, was later found dead. For years, the Pontiac Silverdome has been one of America's most famous ruins. Standing in the shadow of an arena that previously hosted the Pope, Super Bowls, and the World Cup, among other significant events, the demolition of Detroit's 80,000-seat arena began on a Sunday with a partial implosion aimed to bring down the structure's upper component, the first phase in a process that may take up to a year. The explosives were detonated with just a few puffs of smoke and flame, but nothing happened. According to Adamo Demolition, 10% of the charges failed to detonate. It was still predicted that the building would be demolished. It was only an issue of when. Chicago's southwest side was engulfed in a 10-block-wide cloud of brown dust, making it almost impossible to see, breathe, move, or take a ride. It all went horribly wrong during Hilco Redevelopment Partners' planned implosion of the 95-year-old Crawford Power Generating Station coal-fired power station chimney. After years of campaigning by environmentalists under the previous owner's control, the Crawford coal-fired power station was forced to shut down in 2012. Amid a coronavirus epidemic, the station presented a severe health risk to the community, even as it was being demolished. Residents as far away as East Garfield Park, Illinois, 4.5 miles from the demolition site, claim to have been affected by the dust. In Turkey, the demolition of a decrepit structure nearly culminated in disaster when, instead of falling to the ground as predicted, the building tumbled onto its side, then rolled onto its roof, flipping almost 180 degrees. The building was destroyed. The old flour plant came to a grinding stop in the middle of a residential complex with dozens of occupants, causing dust clouds to billow in the wind, but causing no recorded injuries. Amazingly, the structure, built in 1928, was still intact, although on its side, which was upside down. To begin work on a new retail center, the contractors plan to demolish the 25-meter-tall edifice and turn it into rubble. The station's 2 smokestacks were demolished using explosives. Still, the demolition failed, leaving the smokestack standing and the structure half collapsed. A second effort resulted in both smokestacks collapsing. Officials inspected the subterranean water pipe to verify it was not harmed in the explosion. The facility began generating electricity in the 1960s. In 2012, NB Power chose to decommission the facility. Contractors set up an explosion at Churchill and Montgomery houses. 2 hours after the initial attempt, Churchill House fell. But for a week, Montgomery House was dangerously unstable. The bungled demolition evicted several people. The echo showed that 4-inch-long, 15 to 20 millimeter thick steel pipes were the reason the tower blocks didn't come down on schedule. Before demolishing the towers, contractors dug into the concrete columns at the base. Still, they didn't discover the pipes buried 8 inches down. Everyone enjoys a good video of a massive structure crumbling. This video beats it. On December 30th, a 22-story residential structure in Lizhou, southern China, was destroyed. But when the demolition goes awry, calamity is avoided. Instead of collapsing, half of the structure falls sideways, sparing calamity. Worse, the other half is still standing, but tilting to one side. After 2 unsuccessful dynamite efforts, contractor Tim Pfeiffer opted to use a track hoe to excavate around the 113-year-old Avondale Mills chimney base. It landed on Pfeiffer's track hoe. Pfeiffer told the next day that God had protected him. The St. Clair County District Attorney kept an eye out. Pfeiffer's firm had a current ATF federal explosive license at the destruction, but his state permit had expired. The structure was scheduled to be demolished, but over 300 pounds of dynamite weren't enough to bring it down. The unsuccessful demolition left it with a characteristic tilt and the moniker the Leaning Tower of Dallas. Lloyd D. Neighbors' Demolitions implosion was part of the central. This $2.5 billion development project would bring an office complex, a hotel, restaurants, and other facilities immediately north of downtown Dallas. And finally, with that, the video on the demolition failures that went wrong essentially ends. Do let us know which failure to you was the most mind-boggling in the comments section below. If you like this video, do leave us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel because more such videos await your attention. We'll catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.